Well, good morning. This is Ian R. Crane, and it's the morning of Monday, the 31st of December, 2018, New Year's Eve. And, this is going to be a bit of a review of the year, but although it may not seem it, 2018 was very definitely the year that humanity actually started to step up to the plate and actually step into its own natural sovereignty. Now, the reality is that it may not be yet in the numbers that it needs to be, but the ball is definitely rolling. So here we are on the cusp of 2019, and 2019 is very definitely going to be the year that we need to embrace the chaos, because there is no doubt in my mind whatsoever that the establishment and the deep state, which aren't necessarily one and the same, are going to increase the chaos in an attempt to get people just to go, and say, I don't want to know, bury their heads in the sand, and then let them carry on with their agenda. But it isn't going to happen. And the reality is that humanity is going to come together on an increasing basis and challenge the sociopathic corporatocracy, and not least the global banksters. So let's have a look at what's occurred. You know what? It's a little over a week ago since the Dronegate drama at Gatwick. But what a gift. What an absolutely amazing gift. I have literally only come across a handful of people that are even prepared to consider the possibility that there was actually a drone. And a number of people have actually stated that this was a trigger event for them, because although they had had this suspicion that the media wasn't necessarily always telling them the truth, and that the corporatocracy would do whatever it had to do to try to protect its profitability at the expense of the wider population. And these people are now saying, you know what, now we see it. This was an absolute catalyst in their awakening. And of course, this has still got some legs, because the Sussex police, having said that obviously there was a drone and arrested two completely innocent people, who I hope make out like absolute bandits this year, in terms of compensation for the trauma that they suffered for being splashed all over the global news as the perpetrators of this non-existent drone. The police stating then that there might not have been a drone at all, and now stating, of course, that actually if people did see a drone, it was quite possibly the Sussex police drone. Well, whoever heard of putting up a drone to find a drone? Basically the best way to see a drone is to scan the skies, both visually and electronically. And last week I mentioned the British military technology from the 1970s, Clarabelle and Fast Chimp, which was able to identify an incoming sniper bullet and indeed the direction that it was coming from. So if that technology was around nearly 40 odd years ago, I'm damn sure that the technology to spot a drone is in place. So this drama just keeps on giving. So, keep splashing out your lies, your deception, because it is serving to seriously wake people up to, what's occurring in the media. So, before I touch on fracking, let's have a look at what else is occurring, because, one of the biggest challenges for 2019 is certainly going to be to raise the awareness of 5G. And, my observation is that certainly Mark Steele has very much been instrumental in raising awareness of the dangers associated with 5G through 2018. And of course, his two court cases, the civil case in which Gateshead Council tried to gag him following his presentation to Gateshead Council in November of 2017, And then his criminal case, where two local councillors alleged that he had effectively harassed them. Well, the civil case resulted in the judge making it very clear that he would not gag Mark Steele, and effectively instructing Gateshead Council to take his concerns and the concerns of other residents seriously. Something Gateshead Council have yet to do, and they keep trying to flag up that Mark is in breach of the injunction every time he asks a question. But of course, you will notice that Gateshead Council will not go back to court, because they know very, very well that any decent judge is going to dismiss their application to extend the injunction, and actually demand that they do take their ratepayers or poll tax payers, or whatever it is these days, they take them seriously. So Mark is back in court on January 24th for an appeal against the conviction, the criminal conviction, and I think that with the appropriate legal representation there this time, he has a very, very strong chance of success. And this is going to be a much bigger challenge than fracking, because 5G is going to impact on the whole country, and particularly targeting the cities first and foremost. And Mark has also been instrumental in raising the concerns about 5G technology with MI6, but from another perspective, which is encouraging MI6 to look at the magnitude of the Chinese technology that is being introduced throughout the country. And of course, coincidentally, Donald Trump has made a similar observation and effectively put a block on the further spread of Chinese technology, particularly communications technology, in the US. So this is a massive battle, because the negative health impacts associated with 5G are the awareness of them is at a very similar situation as it was with the negative health impacts of fracking 6 years ago. And now, of course, anyone who's done even a modicum of research knows very, very well that living in the proximity of a fracked gas well is seriously detrimental to the health and well-being of any sentient being that lives within that vicinity. And 5G, the evidence is now starting to emerge. In fact, in California, in some communities, the fire services have made it clear that they will not accept phone masts anywhere near their fire stations because of the associated health impacts. And the firemen have complained of nausea, memory loss, sleeplessness, insomnia. And so as more and more people are encouraged to do their research, they will of course be fobbed off by the local authorities, who no doubt are taking significant spondula from the companies that are trying to put this technology into place. And of course, let's not forget that putting a phone mast in situ is now permitted development. So the phone companies don't even need to seek planning permission. They only need to acquire the rights to access the land, and then they can put a phone mast of anything up to 75 feet in an urban area, or 85 feet in a rural area. So raising awareness of 5G is going to be very much at the forefront of our challenges for 2019. And of course, one of the most significant negative impacts of living in proximity of a phone mast is the greatly increased risk of cancer. And Mark Steele has also made the observation that is it really coincidental that Gateshead Council is the first council in the UK to set up its own funeral service? So Gateshead Council basing their decision on the report that was published a couple of months ago now on the likely increase of suicides in the Gateshead area as a result of the rollout of universal credit. So rather than address the root cause of the problem, then you say, well, okay, there's going to be more suicides, so we'll look at the financial opportunity here and establish our own funeral service. Well, even the official forecasts for cancer rates, which acknowledge that 1 in 3 people right now is likely to develop some form of cancer in the course of their life, it is forecast to increase to 1 in 2 by 2025. And what is going to be the primary driver here? Well, the likelihood is that it's going to be 5G. So, do take a look at Mark's website, which is saveusnow.org. And, what you'll find there is some templates of letters that you can send to your local councils, and also examples of freedom of information requests that Mark has submitted regarding this issue. And I'm also going to take the opportunity to acknowledge the work of Brian Snellgrove, who has put together one of the most outstanding resources of information on 5G, and that website is www.5gexposed.com. That's 5gexposed.com, and there's some truly outstanding information and videos on that website. So with cancer looking to effectively increase by a third over the next 7 years or so, one would think that the establishment would be going into overdrive to find effective treatments. But in fact, the establishment and Big Pharma are, of course, going into overdrive to prevent effective treatments coming to market. And this was epitomised, of course, by David Noakes and his attempt to bring GC-MAF to the wider market. And GC-MAF has, over the past 25 years, proven to be a very effective treatment for cancer. And it's now becoming increasingly accepted that cancer is very much a result of an attack on the body's own immune system. So if the immune system can effectively get a reboot, then it can deal with the cancer. And this is where GC-MAF, coupled very much so with a change in diet and cutting out the sugars and reducing carbohydrates, and it's proven to be very effective. And in Guernsey, in fact, where David Noakes was based initially, he was providing GC-MAF to 141 patients free of charge. And there is a plethora of evidence and academic and research papers, particularly on PubMed, which is the US repository of academic papers associated with public health. And these papers prove that this is an effective treatment. So what are the cancer research charities doing? Well, they're taking your money. They're taking enormous amounts of money, well over £1 billion a year. And what are they doing with it? Making sure that basically nothing comes to market that can challenge the supremacy of chemo and radiotherapy, which are massive revenue streams for the pharmaceutical industry. For those people who want to latch on to the outrageous BBC reporting during the trial hearing, or not the trial hearing, the Newton hearing, the sentencing hearing of David back in late November, basically then you are falling into the trap of literally getting your information from the lamestream media, which is nothing more than a propaganda front for the establishment and for the corporatocracy. So if you're simply regurgitating the crap that you read or heard on the BBC, then stop and think who has most to gain by pumping that information out and not encouraging you to do your own research. Now, of course, over 2018, cannabis oil was made legal. And, of course, the establishment very quickly took control of the legal cannabis market, the medicinal cannabis market. But, I think this is a pretty sad day, because obviously Big Pharma will make sure that whatever cannabis is available on prescription has minimal effect. So, it's very unfortunate, but the real deal is going to be available from the previous usual sources. So David Noakes is in jail until at least the end of March as a result of having the audacity to develop and distribute an effective cancer treatment. But he's better off, of course, than many of his US counterparts, not least Dr. Jeffrey Bradstreet, who was one of David's biggest customers, who had done his own research and established that GC-MAF was an effective treatment for autism. And obviously the establishment definitely didn't want that to be known. They love the fact that an increasing number, particularly the male population, is autistic. So what happened? The MHRA instructed the FDA, and the FDA went and raided the laboratories and clinics of Dr. Jeffrey Bradstreet, and the following day he was found dead in a river in the Carolinas with a bullet wound to the chest, which was ruled by the local sheriff to be a suicide. And if you believe that, then please drop me a line, because I've got some nice beachfront property in central Birmingham that you would probably be very interested in investing in. So David obviously is wallowing in Wandsworth Prison, and David has asked me to pass on his thanks to all those people who have taken the trouble to write to him and to show their support. And once David is out of jail, then perhaps there's an opportunity to review how this can be taken forward. And not least, we have to take it forward by challenging the MHRA, the Medicines and Healthcare Regulatory Agency, which is effectively the bully boy for Big Pharma. It's a government-sanctioned protection racket to ensure that Big Pharma's revenue stream is not negatively affected. So much work to do here, and to further expose the MHRA's crimes against humanity. So 2018 has also been an excellent year in the anti-fracking campaign. And this time last year I sensed that we had won the case at Kirkby Misperton. The way in which the community came together in North Yorkshire was nothing short of impressive. Not everybody agreed with the strategy that everyone was adopting, but people just got on with it, and eventually Third Energy were run out of town. And of course it was their own financial, or lack of financial security, that led to their downfall. Surprise, surprise. So Third Energy aren't going to be going back to Kirkby Misperton anytime soon. We're certainly not with any intention to frack. And elsewhere, a similar situation now at Preston New Road, where, although at the moment it's not the finances, it might be soon, but it's very much related to the fact that they have attempted to frack at PNR, their Z1 well, but having triggered 57 seismic events, one of which was at 1.5, which was the same level as the event they triggered on May 27th, 2011, which ultimately led to the moratorium being put in place. So I think that Quadrilla have decided, probably under pressure from the industry and maybe even certain individuals in central government, have decided to do a tactical withdrawal from Preston New Road, pending them being able to persuade the government, not least the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, headed up by Greg Clark, and persuaded him to raise the limits. But that ain't going to happen. I mean, if that did happen, I think that would be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and we would see the sale of high-vis vests in the UK go exponential. And I don't think that Greg Clark is likely to risk that anytime soon. So as I'm standing here right now in East Lancashire, at the other side of the county, Quadrilla are in the process of dismantling the setup there. Obviously, they would love to be able to come back and frack the second well that they've drilled, Z2, but I think they and everybody in central government knows that if they do that, it will be the absolute death knell of the industry. Now, elsewhere, iGas in North Nottinghamshire have, of course, announced that they can't find the Bowland Shale. Well, I call BS on that, and I don't mean Bowland Shale. I suspect that they had a very, very significant well collapse, so significant that they couldn't actually continue drilling. So rather than have to go back and start the whole process of planning applications again, they've just decided to pull the plug on the well at Tinker Lane, and now they will look to move to Misson Springs, where I know the community there are ready to give them a North Nottinghamshire welcome, which is going to get very interesting. And INEOS, the only company really with the financial wherewithal to be able to pursue this industry, not looking very good for them, because one, they don't even have any pad established yet, but two, Lynn Calder, who was the commercial director of INEOS Shale from January 2017, I believe, up until the middle of this year, 2018, and then she took over the role of Chief Executive Officer. Well, after just 6 months in that job, she has now left, and I believe she's taken up another position with INEOS in Switzerland. So this isn't looking too good, particularly for Messrs Crotty and Pickering, who for the past few years have been telling Jim Ratcliffe exactly what he wanted to hear, but of course it's proved to be a whole load of BS. And I don't mean Bowland Shale. So I think that INEOS are starting to realise that they've got no possibility of being able to establish any source of ethane from the UK, because the resistance is just going to keep on mounting. And if Quadrilla are triggering seismic activity in an area that hasn't been subjected to coal mining, unlike northeast Derbyshire and South Yorkshire, where INEOS are looking to establish their exploratory wells, then, you know, basically what could possibly go wrong? Well, pretty much everything, basically. And I would encourage anyone who hasn't taken a look at Peter Stiles' report. Professor Peter Stiles, of course, from Keele University, has suggested that trying to frack beneath heavily mined coal measures is simply nonsensical. And, you know, basically it would be hurry-curry for the unconventional gas industry in the UK. So, elsewhere, of course, people are very much waking up in France. On, I believe it was on Saturday, somebody set light to the doors of the Banque de France in Rouen, and yesterday there were a number of similar events in Paris. And although the British media tried to present this as a revolt against an increase in fuel tax, then of course they were simply trying to oversimplify the fact that the French have realised now that basically the globalists are intent on destroying not only their economy but their culture. And this, you know, was openly admitted by Macron, because he thought he had the country by the proverbial cojones. How that has backfired dramatically. And you know, the rise of the Gilets Jaune, the yellow vests in France, is now spreading to the Netherlands and to Belgium and also to Sweden. And after Angela Merkel had recently stated that basically nation states have to be prepared to give up their sovereignty, it surely isn't too long before the German people realise that they actually need to become a little bit more active than perhaps has been the case recently. So at the moment in the UK, the sale of the high-vis jackets doesn't appear to be increasing significantly, but you know, I don't think it's going to take very much. Maybe the failure to enact a full Brexit might trigger that. I mean, those people who think that 17.4 million are just going to sit back and roll over and let a second vote occur, I think are living in some kind of delusional cuckoo land. You know, this was the most democratic decision in electoral history in this country. You know, a government normally gets elected on a vote of somewhere, you know, between 28 and 34%. So, although it wasn't perhaps as big a majority, or maybe it was, but then it was manipulated. But you know, it was still over 50% of the people who voted in 2017. I've lost track of years now, but they voted for Brexit, and basically it needs to be delivered. So we have many challenges ahead of us, but I must confess that I am extremely optimistic about 2019. I think it's going to be a catalytic year, and I think we are going to see some very significant changes, but it is dependent upon each and every one of us doing whatever it is that we believe will contribute to bringing about the changes that we all know we need to see. So that's it from me for 2018. So I wish everybody, you know, wonderful new year. Enjoy your celebrations tonight. I think there is much cause for celebration. And I think it has been a tremendous year, and I just love the way people are waking up and starting to realize that, you know, it is not appropriate just to sit back and let this stuff happen. We have to get involved. And I think 2019 is going to be an exciting year. And the title for AV10 is Embracing the Chaos. And so, you know, I know that some people may find, you know, the chaotic political arena somewhat disturbing, but I see it as one that creates enormous opportunity. So you have a great day and a great evening tonight, and I will be back with you at 8:30 on Wednesday, the 2nd of January 2019. You take care now.